Hey, how are we doing there, guys and gals? Welcome back. So as you all know, this is the Kawasaki ZZR1400, my pride and joy. But since having the ZH2 around, it's kind of got me thinking about a few things I would personally like to change about this motorcycle. Let's get into it. So in today's video, guys and gals, we are going to start off with a few obvious things that I would like to change about this bike, and they might seem obvious to you if you are a ZZR owner yourselves, but it should give you a rough idea of what to expect if you are looking to do a few of the things that this bike is so-called catering for. Now, a lot of you riders use this bike as a tourer, as a sport tourer, but what about luggage capacity? So luggage capacity on this motorcycle is okay. Now, Kawasaki, in their infinite wisdom, have almost completely turned away from top boxes and almost using exclusively panniers, at least from stock and from Kawasaki directly. I believe that the only rails that you can get for this motorcycle are for panniers. Now, with the first generation ZZR1400, you could get a rail that would suit for panniers and also for a top box. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case with this motorcycle. Now, I have heard rumors that you are able to use a first generation ZZR1400 rack for panniers and for a top box, but it's a bit of a pain really, and Kawasaki know that this motorcycle, a lot of you are going to be using it for touring with, and the fact that you probably can't use or can't get as much luggage space as you could with the last generation, for me is a bit of a step back. But I don't personally use this bike for touring, so it's okay for me. It's just a consideration that some of you more touring oriented folk will probably want to know. So the next thing that I would like to go over with you guys is access to the battery. Now, do you remember in the good old days where all batteries used to be kept under the seat and getting access to them was fairly straightforward? Well, that doesn't seem to be the case nowadays with modern Kawasaki motorcycles. The battery for the ZZR1400 is here, behind this piece of fairing and behind another piece of plastic that is underneath it. So you've got to take off 1, 2, 3 bolts, 4 bolts before you can actually get to the battery compartment itself. Kind of annoying, and if I'm being honest with you, a bit of a security flaw, because I mean, at least under the seat you've got a locking mechanism that you can only access with the key. I mean, I'm sure there are ways you can pick that lock, but still it kind of gives you at least that deterrence factor, I suppose. But someone could, in theory, go to your Kawasaki ZZR1400, just take off a few pieces of fairing, and they have full access to the battery, which, again, bit of a pain. That is a loud motorcycle, and I hate that guy, ruining the shot. But yeah, just one of those things that I would personally like to change. There is more than enough space underneath the seat for a battery compartment. They could have put the battery in there. Granted that the stock battery on this bike is kind of big, and yeah, that's a bit of a pain, but at the same time, I have a lithium battery in here, which only takes about half the space, so you win some, you lose some, I suppose, but it would have been nice if they did find a way of putting the battery compartment underneath the seat, as in traditional fashion. So in a moment, we are actually going to get on the ZZR1400 and go for a ride, just to go over the last few points that I've got for you in today's video. But whilst we're still here, I want to talk about this. This screen here probably looked really cool back in 2006. That's probably where it should have stayed. With the refreshed model of the ZZR1400, or the second generation model ZZR1400, they could have done with a full color TFT dash right there, really, in my opinion. Now, even if they couldn't do that, even if the technology wasn't available at the time, which it was, but even if it wasn't and they couldn't get access to it, or it wasn't cost effective enough, they could have done another refresh of this bike, maybe 2017, 2018, to add a LCD TFT dash right there. It would look a hell of a lot cooler, and it would modernize this bike tenfold. It would make it look so much nicer and a bit more appealing to modern customers. You know, this bike is still in 2012, and there are some elements that are still back in 2006. So I like it, but I think it could have been better. It's functional, it works, it gives you all the information that you need, and it's fairly straightforward to use, but like I said, the ZH2 has kind of spoiled me with all these color things, you know, all this nice tech, which I kind of wish there are a few bits of that in this bike. Some of you would disagree with me, and I totally understand. Some of you prefer this older style of displays, you know, you got the analog dials and what have you. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I actually quite like the old style kind of speedo and rev meter. I kind of like that personally. That's why I wouldn't change them. I would just change that in the middle. At least that's just me. And finally, whilst we're here, let's talk about cruise control. This bike, sadly, is absent of cruise control. You guys know how I feel about this bike. I think it's a sport bike. A lot of you think it's a sport tourer. You could have made more of an argument for sport tourer if this bike had cruise control. Unfortunately, alas, it's not present on this bike. Would have been a really nice feature to have for those of you that like to pile on the miles. And again, Kawasaki wouldn't have had to change anything about this bike, apart from just adding in a few little creature comforts that modern riders like to have. Cruise control is a fairly obvious one. Alright guys and gals, very last thing that we need to do before we finish up today's video is go for a ride on the ZZR1400 to give you the last few bits and pieces that I would love to change about this bike. Now quick, can't get my words out today. Quick disclaimer, a few of you may disagree with the things that I'm about to say, but it's just from my ownership over the last 2 to 3 years on this bike, and having had the opportunity to ride other motorcycles during that time, there's a few bits and pieces that I wish were different about this bike. But let's jump on, let's go for a ride, and let's see what you guys think.
It's in gear. Of course I put it in gear because it's on a hill. Silly Billy. Don't get me wrong about this video, guys and gals. This bike is absolutely amazing, and it's not perfect, but it is up there as one of the best motorcycles you can currently buy, at least if you are lucky enough to live in a country where you can still buy one, at least from new anyway. But yeah, absolutely amazing motorcycle, and don't regret a single day that I've owned this motorcycle right here. But alright, so whilst we're riding, let's talk about power modes. So this bike has got 2 power modes. Great. The full and low power mode. I mean, from my personal experience, the difference between the full and the low power mode is kind of negligible. I mean, a few people have commented in the past about the power modes, and actually that it does make a difference, a significant difference. For me, I don't feel that much of a difference, but then again, I don't know exactly where it's limiting the power, and more than likely limiting it around the mid-range to top end. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I hardly ever spend that much time in the top end of the rev range on this bike, so for me it doesn't make much of a difference. But one thing that I would like to see, one is perhaps an extra power mode. If they could do that, was to add an extra power mode for the 2012 model, or the 2nd gen release. So they had 3 power modes, which obviously is pretty standard practice now within Kawasaki's lineup, is to have 3 power modes on their motorcycles. But one other feature that I would like to see, or that I would have liked to have seen, is a custom profile, a custom rider mode. That's what I would have liked to have seen. And again, that's something you can have on the ZX2. You have a custom rider mode, which is the mode that I use most of the time, especially during the summer, where I have cruise control turned off and I'm in the full power mode. I love it, it's great. But on this bike, every single time you restart it, it will put on the cruise control, the traction control. It will turn on the traction control automatically, which is kind of annoying. If it did have a custom rider mode, then that would have alleviated that issue, and you know, it just gives riders a little bit more control over the way how they like to ride. You know, like for me, that would have been a really nice feature on this motorcycle, which unfortunately it does not have. I mean, another thing is a quick shifter. Quick shifters have been around for such a long time now, and it's a real shame that they didn't add a quick shifter to this bike in 2012 when they had the opportunity to. Even if it was just a quick upshift, you know, a quick upshifter would have been absolutely amazing. And again, it would have changed the way how this motorcycle feels to ride, at least in certain scenarios, Now on my ZH2 again, I'm always using the quick shifter on the ZH2, always using it, and I love it. I mean, a lot of you have actually commented in the videos on the ZH2 about how I'm always using the clutch. It's just old habits for me, but I honestly, I do use the quick shifter an awful lot on that bike, and it's just one of those things, again, a creature comfort that I wish I had on the ZZR. Alright guys, this is perhaps the most controversial thing that I would love to change about this motorcycle, and I think most of you would have agreed with me up to this point, but this last one, I know for a fact that some of you are going to disagree with this, because it takes away from the idea from this motorcycle. It takes away from the whole reason why it even exists. And for me, I wish that this bike was geared slightly differently, for a little bit more of a punch down low in the rev range, a little bit more torque down low. The trade-off to that more than likely would have been top speed. This is one of the fastest motorcycles in the world by reputation, because of the Hayabusa. It had to be the fastest motorcycle in the world, and this person doesn't know where the fudge they're going. But I don't know how gearing works on a motorcycle. I'm not a mod or anything like that. But what I would have liked to have seen is maybe one tooth taken off the front sprocket, maybe. Again, I'm not sure how the ratios work, okay? And this is a mod that you guys can do yourselves at home, okay? You can get aftermarket gearing kits, which will sort out this problem for you if you feel the same way as I do. So yeah, it's all well and good being able to do your own gearing setup, and a lot of people do. But the problem that you'll have, especially with a lot of modern motorcycles, is the speed sensor. So I believe that a lot of older motorcycles had the speed sensor on one of the wheels, on one of the tires. So it would measure the speed that you were doing based on the rotation of the tire, I believe. Modern speed sensors are internal. So, I mean, unless you are one of these people that actually, you know, that absolutely loves getting stuck into the insides of a motorcycle, then fine, that job might be for you. But if you think that the job of changing a couple of sprockets is enough, I'm sorry to say that on a modern motorcycle you're not going to know what speed you're doing if you do that change. Now, I don't know about this bike and where the speed sensor is on this motorcycle. I haven't researched it before coming out today, but that's the thing. Again, if the top speed of this bike, let's be honest, right, you are never ever going to be doing 186 miles an hour, are you? I mean, I think the fastest I've ever gone on this motorcycle was maybe 115, 120. That's it. You know, and I don't really find myself wanting to go those speeds all the time. I only did that once. And a lot of the time I actually prefer having a punch down low to get me up to speed as quickly as possible. If the top speed of this bike was 150 miles an hour, but you got more torque down low in the range and, you know, a bit more punch off the line, I would happily accept that trade-off if that's what they did from stock. But like I said, that takes away from what this bike was made for, and it was made to be the fastest bike in the world, which obviously it's not anymore. But again, would have been nice if it was catered more for street use, I suppose is the way I would describe it. It's funny, isn't it, how, you know, I'm talking about all the time how there's a sport bike and what have you, and a lot of the things that I've said are actually features that are on touring bikes, so I'm trying to make this more of a tourer than a sport bike. That's ridiculous, isn't it? But again, it's just modern street riding. It's just the way how I personally would have loved this motorcycle to be. And it is what it is, guys and gals. It is what it is. This bike has been designed as it is, and we still buy them. So this bike gets a load of stuff correct. It gets a load of stuff right. That's why this bike is absolutely amazing. I think I mentioned this in a video last week. Is I'm looking for the holy grail of motorcycle. You know, the holy grail, the perfect motorcycle. I don't think I'll ever find it, and I don't think anyone ever will, because perfect is different to different people. But I think in my heart, if Kawi had added these features into this bike in a refreshed model, 2017, 2018, something like that, oh man, what a motorcycle that would have been. Oh, yeah, I mean, it would have been absolutely wicked if that is what they did, but at the same time, having said all of that, I wouldn't change this bike for anything. I love it as is, and if Kawi never ever do another ZX-14, ZZR1400, it doesn't matter. It is still a modern classic. It is still one of the best motorcycles in the world, despite the changes I would like to make personally. But I love it. I love it. But that will do for today's video, guys and gals. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and again, let me know in the comments what you think about my suggestions, about what I would have loved to have changed about this bike, or a few things that were different about this bike. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and if you own a ZZR1400, let me know the things that you would change about this motorcycle. You know, would you not bother with a quick shifter? Would you not bother with a TFT LCD full color display? Would you not bother with any of that? Would you not bother with cruise control? Let me know. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this bike, and I don't know, guys. I don't know. This bike just draws a lot of emotions for me. A lot of very, very positive emotions. And that's the thing, isn't it? It doesn't matter how good something is, it can always be a bit better, you know? Anyway, guys and girls, thank you ever so much for tuning in to today's video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's given you some food for thought. But make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment, make sure to subscribe. We recently just broke 2,000 subscribers, and man, I cannot thank you guys enough for that achievement. That is absolutely wicked, and just a few weeks after our 1-year anniversary, to reach such a milestone is absolutely wicked. So thank you ever so much to all of you who subscribe and support the channel. Absolutely love you guys. For those of you that watch our content regularly and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, guys. Honestly, it's just one click of your mouse. You already made the effort to click on this video. Go ahead and give me one more click on that subscribe button. We really, really appreciate the support, especially if you want to see more of this wicked ZZR1400. But yeah, that'll do for today's video, guys and gals. Thank you ever so much again for watching. Hope you're all doing well. We'll catch you in the next one.